It's business as usual for the staff and students of East Washington Middle School in Pekin, Indiana. Everyone is settled into the new school year, including David Morrow, a teacher who's back in action after a long medical leave. David, who had been on dialysis due to kidney failure for some time, was expecting to be evaluated for a kidney transplant last year when he received some unexpected news.
We were doing dialysis, and one day I got this envelope in the mail from the UK Medical Center. And I read it, and it says, you have been selected as a candidate, or, and we want you to come down for an interview and be interviewed. So from there, we went on down and I met the kidney doctor down there, and he said, well, we'll come back and meet as a team with your other doctors and decide what to do if you're a good candidate for a kidney transplant. And I met with Dr. Raj Napalan, and he said, well, we can't just give you a kidney transplant by itself because we don't think that is the major issue. We think it's your heart. And so he said, but we can do a heart and a kidney transplant.
David was a perfect individual for a combined heart-kidney transplant. He is diabetic, but otherwise was reasonably healthy, and he was very motivated. He clearly said to us, the fact that he was still continuing to teach school while he was on dialysis really showed how dedicated he was and how motivated he was. So we knew from the beginning he'd be an excellent transplant candidate.
Even as his health deteriorated, David did continue to teach, determined to stay until the end of the school year before allowing himself to be admitted to UK Chandler Hospital. By that time, his condition had grown noticeably worse.
His health was failing, and we did what we could. He still wanted to be in this classroom. When I said stubborn, I mean stubborn, because he would not leave just to go to the doctor. He would come to school, take off long enough to go to the appointment and be back.
But by the end of school, I was ready to go. I was leaning against the wall, trying to catch my breath. I couldn't walk maybe 30 or 40 feet, and I was out of breath. And I made it through the end of school. And then I think after Memorial Day, that's when I went down, and I stayed down in the UK for about 6 months.
While at UK, David received ECMO assistance followed by a right and left ventricular assist device to perform the work of his failing heart. He lived in the hospital for nearly 6 months, waiting on his transplants and doing his best to remain optimistic.
I mean, they had a doctor who came in, and he had a transplant himself. Yeah, Dr. Shelton, and he came in, and he was always encouraging, and he just wrote up on the board. He said, David, I want you to just leave this up here and look at it every day. He says, you will get a heart and you will be okay. And he just left that up there, and he said, you just keep reading that. And he said, it will happen. And it did.
On November 5th, 2012, David received his new heart and kidney. He remained at UK for a month before going back to Indiana. When he returned, his colleagues and students had a surprise in store for him. A balloon release and a special celebration to welcome him home. Linda Ludeman, former principal at East Washington Middle School, says Morrow was never far from their minds in the year that he was gone.
We always have a vision, a mission, a theme for the year. And our theme that we came up with, it just was a natural fit with his last name, Morrow. Our focus is always on the future and with the students, and so we came up with focus on a better and a healthier tomorrow.
Just 9 months after receiving his life-saving dual transplant, David returned to the classroom. Seeing him back teaching so soon after such a major medical procedure came as a surprise to some of his fellow teachers.
I was very surprised. I mean, knowing what he had went through, it was very shocking to me to think, after he'd been away for so long and had those major surgeries, that he was going to be able to come back and work. So I was a little skeptical that he was going to be able to do it, honestly. But he seems to be doing very well. I think he's kind of surprised a lot of us with his comeback.
He could retire at any time, but David says he loves teaching and he's not ready to give it up just yet. And though having his heart and kidney replaced didn't stop him, he says there is one thing that'll let him know when it's time to move on.
it gives me, you know, a purpose, I guess you might say. A lot of the children come in, always look forward because their parents were in my classroom, and I told them, I said, when they start getting the grandchildren in here, I believe it's time for me to step out and everything. So.